Hi guys, tonight we're going to talk about Chapter 11. We're going to start with, first of all, Chapter 11 is Industry and Manufacturing. And key issue 1 is where is industry distributed? So the modern concept of industry means the manufacturing of goods in a factory. And this originated in northern England and southern Scotland in the second half of the 18th century. In what we know as the Industrial Revolution. And this refers to improvements made in industrial technology that transformed the process of manufacturing goods. And so this map shows us rail lines constructed, and it tells us, it shows us by color through choropleth map what dates railways were opened in different countries. And it was because of the Industrial Revolution that railways began to be opened. So you can see that the earliest railways were opened in the United Kingdom, specifically England first. So industry is concentrated in 3 regions: Europe, North America, and East Asia. And each region accounts for roughly 1/4 of the world's total industrial output. Brazil and India account for most of industrial output outside of the aforementioned regions. So you guys have already looked at these regions. You put these on a map and you wrote down the dates and the locations of these regions. And here are the ones in North America, and here they are in Asia. So let's talk about situation and site factors. Geographers attempt to explain why one location may prove more profitable for a factory than others. So companies ordinarily face 2 geographic costs. And the first of those are situation factors. These are costs associated with the established transportation networks accessible from a specific place. And then you have your site factors. These are the costs resulting from the unique characteristics of the location. So let's get a little more into what those mean. Situation factors have to do with proximity to inputs. The farther something is transported, the higher the cost. So a manufacturer tries to locate its factory as close as possible to its inputs and markets. Proximity to input, an optimal plant location is near the input. So raw material transportation costs are greater than transportation costs of the product to consumer. A bulk reducing industry is such because the input weighs more than the final products. In this case, the plant location is near the market to reduce transportation costs. Proximity to market, the optimal plant location is near the market. The raw material transportation costs are less than transportation costs of the product to the consumer. So, critical location factor for 3 types of industries. In bulk gaining industries, the production of a product that gains volume or weight during its production. Plants are typically located near the market to reduce the cost of transportation. So, for example, Ms. Walker gave us this great example this weekend of why Toyota is located in Georgetown and not in Japan. Cars are a bulk gaining industry. So you take all these little pieces and you put them together to make a larger object, a larger piece of machinery. So it gains bulk as it's put together. Because it is bulk gaining, you want that factory or that plant to be near the market, near where people are going to buy that object. So it is better to put a factory for cars in the United States where people are going to buy the cars than it would be to put that factory in Japan and have to ship the finished cars from Japan to the United States. On the other hand, something small like a phone that's very easy to ship, it would be very easy to take the parts, put it together, and ship the phone from China to the United States. So things like phones, even though they aren't used as often in China, they're put together in China and shipped to the United States because it's not so difficult to ship them to the United States, and it's much less costly to have them made in somewhere like China. So the example they give us here is the fabrication of parts and machinery from steel and other metals, which is just like a car, or plants where beverages are bottled. So you want to have your location of your plant where your consumers are, rather than transporting those bottles a really far distance. So for example, this shows us the pink are the Anheuser-Busch factories. And see right here, that's where I grew up. So you could like smell it when you drove past, which I didn't think smelled very good. And then the blue are the Miller Coors factories. And you can tell, like, look how close a lot of them are. You can see they kind of have a similar market. So people who like one similar market of people are going to like the other one. Okay, so other critical location factors. Then we have the single market manufacturers, specialized manufacturers with only 1 or 2 customers. Optimal location for factories is often in close proximity to the customers. For example, a producer of a specialized component attached to clothing, like buttons, zippers, or pins, or the makers of parts for motor vehicles. So these people make a very specialized item, and they only have a few customers. And so they want to be near their customers. So here's this lady in a factory making zippers. And then the third type of industry, these are perishable products. So companies specializing in perishable products must be located in close enough proximity to their markets that the product does not spoil or become dated during transportation. And examples of these are food products like bakers and milk bottlers, or time-sensitive products such as printed newspapers. Oh, potato chips. It's kind of gross to see them in that huge quantity. Okay, so why... Oh, we're still talking about situation and site factors. So the question is, ship, rail, truck, or air? And firms want to always have the lowest cost mode of transportation. The cost per kilometer or mile... Sorry, I'm getting sleepy. The cost per kilometer or mile decreases at a different rate for each of the 4 modes. So based on whether you're shipping, you're using the railroad, you're using a truck, or you're using airliner or a airplane, that depends. That's gonna determine your cost per kilometer or mile. And because loading and unloading expenses differ by the mode of transportation. So many companies that use multiple transport modes locate at a bulk of break point, which is a location where transfer among transportation modes is possible. So for example, your factory might be near a seaport or near an airport, so that you don't have to, truck something a long way to take it to the airport, or put it on a train and the train goes to the airport, or fly something a long way to a boat. So they try to be near one of these modes of transportation. So this shows us, this reminds me of, if any of you guys have flown, in the back of your, if you read the in-flight magazine, they always show all the routes that the plane takes. And you can see like, oh, this plane goes to all these places. So these are world shipping routes. And the heaviest shipping traffic is across the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans to North America. Okay, steel, changing inputs. So changing distribution of the steel industry. Two changes in situation factors have influenced changes in the distribution of steel mills within the United States and the world. 1. Changes in relative importance of main inputs, so iron ore and coal. And 2. Increasing importance of proximity to markets rather than proximity to inputs. So from the mid-19th through the early 20th century, steel mills were located near inputs. But since the mid-20th century, proximity to markets has become more important than proximity to inputs. So this shows us so the orange is where steel mills used to be. And the purple shows us where some major iron ore deposits are. And then this shows us where the coal deposits are. And then the red dots show us where the steel mills are. So, integrated steel mills are highly clustered near the southern Great Lakes, especially Lake Erie and Lake Michigan. Historically, the most critical factor in situating a steel mill was to minimize transportation costs for raw materials, especially heavy, bulky iron ore and coal. In recent years, many integrated steel mills have closed. Most surviving mills are in the Midwest to maximize access to consumers. Okay, and this map shows us world steel production from 1980 to 2010. The leading steel producer in 1980 was the United States, and in 2010 it was China. Okay, so motor vehicles changing markets. Motor vehicles are built near their markets. So this is exactly what Ms. Walker was talking about with Toyota. Change in markets influences location of factories. So the final assembly plant of motor vehicles is an example of a bulk gaining operation. For example, in North America, Auto Alley is located in the interior of the U.S., also in central Mexico. In Europe, most are located in an east-west corridor between the UK and Russia. And in East Asia, China's plants are located in western China. Let's see. This is a different map than what our book has. Oh, here it is. Okay. Distribution of women's blouse production. The United States is the leading producer of women's blouses. Well, there you go. These women are sewing blouses in China, which is the leading producer among developing countries. Oh, it shows a picture next to it. Let's see if we have it. No, negative. Okay. Oops, sorry guys. Okay, and this map shows us motor vehicle production in North America. Most vehicles are produced in Auto Alley. Most U.S.-owned companies are clustered in the north, and most foreign-owned ones in the south. And motor vehicle production in Europe. Within Europe, most vehicles are produced in an east-west corridor centered on Germany. Okay, so our last site factor Oh no, so we haven't talked about site factors yet. Sorry about that. Site factors, we're going to start with labor. Most important factor on a global scale, minimizing labor costs, which vary around the world, is extremely important to some industries. A labor-intensive industry is an industry in which wages and other compensation paid to employees constitute a higher percentage of expenses. So this shows us the hourly wages for workers in manufacturing in the 14 countries with the largest industrial production in 2010. So you see that in Japan, just kidding, I totally made that up. In Germany, people are making the highest wages at approximately, let's say, $43 an hour. And people are making the lowest wages in India at, gosh, maybe $2 an hour. So you can definitely see why outsourcing happens. And where's the United States in all this? The United States has people making about $35 an hour, and that is in that's at manufacturing. Okay, capital. Manufacturers typically borrow the funds needed to establish new factories or expand existing ones. The ability to borrow money has greatly influenced the distribution of industry in developing countries. And land. Lots must be large enough to accommodate efficient, contemporary one-story buildings. Uh-oh, my battery's dying. Mostly available in suburban and rural locations and tend to be relatively cheaper than land in the city. Textiles and apparel. Changing inputs. The production of textiles, which are woven fabrics, and apparel, which is clothing, generally require less skilled, low-cost labor. The majority of spinning, which is a process to make cotton, is done primarily in low-wage countries. China produces 2/3 of the world's cotton thread. The majority of apparel weaving is highly clustered in low-wage countries, and China produces 60% of fabric worldwide. China produces 30% of fabric worldwide. Hold on. China produces 60%, India produces 30% of fabric worldwide. Okay, so this shows us 2/3 of the world cotton yarn. 2/3 of world cotton yarn is produced in China, including by this woman. Okay, so our next key issue is our book says, where does industry cause pollution? This says, why does industry cause pollution? Interesting. Air pollution is concentration of trace substances at a greater level than occurs in average air. Air pollution can block or delay the return of some of the heat leaving Earth, thereby raising its temperatures. Burning fossil fuels discharges one of the trace gases, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere have risen by over 25% in the last 200 years. The anticipated rise in the Earth's temperature because of rising carbon dioxide levels is called the greenhouse effect. Okay, so this shows us global scale air pollution, global warming, and carbon dioxide concentrations from 1880 to 2010. Since 1880, carbon dioxide concentration has increased by more than 1/3, and Earth has warmed by about 1 degree Celsius or 2 degrees Fahrenheit. The potential implications of global warming: melting of the polar ice sheets, the rising of sea levels, the shifting of the global precipitation patterns, ozone depletion, which leads to the Earth's ozone layer in the atmosphere. Ozone depletion. Earth's ozone layer in the atmosphere protects the planet from dangerous ultraviolet rays emitted by the sun. The Earth's protective ozone layer is threatened by pollutants called chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. By 2030, all countries have agreed to cease using products containing CFCs. I kind of can't believe people are still using them. Like, this was a problem when I was growing up, and I'm really old. I can't believe we still haven't agreed, like, hey, stop using those. But, I mean, we still drive cars that use lots of gas, so what do I know? Regional scale air pollution. Air pollution may damage a region's vegetation and water supply through acid deposition. Tiny droplets of sulfuric acid and nitric acid that form from burning fossil fuels and fall to Earth's surface. Mixing of acid deposition with water produces acid precipitation that manifests itself as rain, snow, or fog. Geographers are interested in acid precipitation because it typically does not fall over where it is emitted, which is just like a sick joke. It's like you get this acid rain and you're not even the one who made the pollution that started it. Okay. This is a regional scale air pollution, acid deposition in the United States. As a result of emissions control, the rate of acid deposition has declined. So this shows 1989 to 91, and this is 2001 to 2003. So you can see how bad it was and how it is getting, it is becoming less. Still not good though. Okay, local air pollution. Air pollution is especially severe in places where emission sources are concentrated, such as urban areas. And urban air pollution has three basic components: carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and particulates. Uh-oh, I think we just lost the computer. We'll pause here.